to name a few. He finds time for recreation in the performing arts and is currently the vice chairman of the Little Theatre Movement of Jamaica. Dr. Watson, I see we have another doctor that likes a balanced life. He's a father of four children and is married to Anne Marie Rutas. Dr. Emil also received the Order of Distinction, Commander Class, for outstanding and dedicated service to the agriculture sector business. Dr. Emil, welcome this morning.
Morning all, morning.
I think by this I've read out your life to Jamaica and to the world. but welcome to all the panelists. I see our numbers have grown. We're now about 50 participants. And so we're discussing this morning safe food now for a healthy tomorrow. Food safety is everyone's business. And so I'd like to start by posing the question, as in, just to lay a background as to what is it that your entity is doing to ensure food safety in our society. And let me go with the lady from the Consumer Affairs Commission, Ms. Campbell.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for this opportunity. The Consumer Affairs Commission, first and foremost, is an agency under the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. And it is our responsibility to educate consumers, to inform them of their rights and responsibilities, to seek redress on their behalf when they feel those rights have been breached, to monitor the market space to ensure that there is some level of reasonableness that is occurring in the space, and where there are any anomalies, to ensure that we investigate and seek with our other partners and under the MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies, to seek to have any kind of upheaval settled. And most of all, we seek to find redress and to compensate consumers where we find that those rights have been breached. Among the things that we educate consumers about is about their rights, and among those basic rights is the right to safe food, and underlying that is the right to a safe environment. So today's opportunity is right up, as we would say in colloquial, it's right up our alley. It is the right to a safe environment, which includes clean air, clean water, safe food. So the theme this morning is almost, it's indicative of the call to action. Safe food now for a healthy Jamaica. It rings true to us at the Consumer Affairs Commission. Hence our tagline, protecting your rights, securing your future, because without safe food and a secure workforce, it's hardly important to discuss any other issue in the economic sphere. So it is a part of our mandate. So the CAC is very pleased to be a part of this celebration today. And as we know, food safety is part of the core of sustainable development and the health of the people. And Jamaica's image is inextricably hinged to food. So it is part of our identity as well. We understand why the world famous Trelawney yam was also attributed to superhuman prowess of the great Usain Bolt. We understand why it is necessary for anybody into the KMA area who is visiting Jamaica. They have to take a visit to Port Royal, to Gloria's restaurant, or to Hellshire Beach for the festival, Fish and Festival. The beaches are now open. And our great national dish, ackee and saltfish, and not to mention Portland Boston jerk. So Jamaica is identified as much as it is with reggae music, with food. So it's important that we understand that safe food is part of who we are, and we need to protect it, secure it with the partnerships that we now have among government agencies, with sector, private labs, and so on, to ensure that we maintain our identity and keep the economic wheels turning. Um, the fact that we have to be on a continuous cycle where the food food safety is concerned, from the farm, as we say in agriculture, from the farm to the fork. Now it has been extended from the farm to the stomach to consumption. What we do at the Consumer Affairs Commission under our education program is to ensure that consumers are aware that when there is an incident in the marketplace, whether it happens to a singular person or it's an incident that involves an institution, it needs to be reported to the Consumer Affairs Commission. And we need to receive that notification in order to investigate and to ensure that consumers' rights are protected and they're not harmed. Because as the theme today says, it is really to promote a healthy Jamaica. So we do not want to have incidents where consumers feel that if I can't trust consuming certain foods because I'm going to end up at the doctor. So the trust and the feeling of having safe foods wherever you go, we assume, because we continuously, that's who we are. That's how we connect with one another. That's how we connect with the world, is through food and occasions. We're there. So we want consumers to feel that level of trust. And while the processes appear invisible, like what Dr. Watson does, or Dr. Emil at the university, the academic level, and so on, it's almost invisible because we assume that every time we order a plate of curry goat and white rice at any street food vendor or a top restaurant or something, we will be able to consume that food and go on to talk about it as the greatest meal we've ever had. Among some of the issues that we find, though, where the actions are where we try to educate consumers about food safety, we find that consumers are not um, as quick to provide us with the kinds of information that we need to seek remedy on their behalf. So the Consumer Affairs Commission continues to educate consumers about expiry dates, the necessity for proper labeling, to report where a label, the contents of the package for manufactured food is not identified. You need to report it. We also inform them when there is when there's an incident in the marketplace. The Consumer Affairs Commission also provides information as to what those remedies ought to be for the consumer if it is at the level of risk where we notify the public. Right. I see Mr. Stewart sitting forward. Did you want me to pause, or should I continue?
So, Ms. Campbell, I think you're giving some very good information here, and so I want to mix up things a bit. But before I go to Dr. Emil, I see a question. We have an early runner. I have no two hands that are up. I'm going to come to those hands, but we have an early runner posing a question in the chat that is asking, based off what you just said, how do they make a report? So if you could just make that point, advise persons how they can make a report, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Emil.
Okay, first you need to identify the product. Now that we are in the midst of a pandemic, we do not encourage persons to walk into our offices. So we use the digital platform a lot. So if you have an incident, ensure that you record the time, the location, including the vendor who purchased the item, the the description of the item and exactly what transpired. You also need to retain what we call the consumer's ID card. That's your receipt, because that's a verification that the place where you may have purchased the item, that's a verification. And then that's when it triggers the partnerships, because the Consumer Affairs Commission does not have testing labs. We do not have experts on food science. So that's where we contact our partners, either at the end, the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority, to monitor the location to see whether or not it has to do with any kind of storage or packaging or so on, or the Bureau of Standards, where we inform the consumer to have the item tested, because we do not want to contaminate, so we don't receive items from consumers. So the Bureau of Standards would test to verify, confirm, or to eliminate any assumptions the consumer would have made about any extraneous matter in the food. So that's one way of, so you can do that online on any of our platforms at the Consumer Affairs Commission, or you may also do a WhatsApp. We receive WhatsApp as well. So whatever platform, digital platform you have available, and then we take it from there. And the complaint officers will instruct you as to exactly what they need to pursue the investigation.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. And I see Karine Clark responding in the chat, telling you thank you also. It was
You're
remiss
welcome.
not to advise our participants that there is a Q&A section on the platform, and we welcome you to post your questions in this section. That way we can directly just get to your question rather than scrolling through the chat to find the questions. So just to remind you, I'm informing you and reminding that there's a Q&A section on the platform that you can post your questions, and definitely I'll get the panel in to answer. Dr. Emil, the man in the agro business, I'd want you to give us a little synopsis as to what is happening here right now in the agribusiness, the role you're playing, and also with respect to the same question posed to Ms. Campbell, what is your entity doing right now to ensure that food is safe at this time?
Well, with respect to agribusiness, understand where we're coming from. We were basically primary producers. We were, in fact, a banana republic and cutlass empire. If we stayed there, we would be literally poor and broke for the rest of our lives. So we would have been at the bottom of the value chain, so to speak. We used to send bananas abroad, or bulk sugar abroad, bulk rum abroad, and even raw coffee beans to Japan, where they would do the differentiation and make the money, where we sit here watching them from a distance. So the concept of agribusiness is to transition from the old primary production structure into a modern society with the necessary value chains that go up and present finished products for the not only the country but for the world. But specifically, what we do in terms of planning for food safety is that our entire company is permeated with quality control experts. Every branch of the company has a quality control department that oversees what we do, when we do it, and how we do it. So there are actually written procedures which must be followed, what we call standard operating procedures that are followed in every step of the way. So what was produced last month is the same thing that repeats this month or next month. The public can be confident that what I bought last time is the same thing I'm getting this time. So with the standard operating procedures throughout the organization, one proceeds not based on personality, but based on clear scientific and technological principles. And then we are members of the ISO, the International Standards Organization, so that it's not a Jamaican thing, it's an international thing where we comply with what other industries are doing wherever they are in the world, and we can elaborate on that later. But we have HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control points at every step of the way that follows the procedures through and institutes preventative controls at every point so that we'd rather prevent than try to correct when something goes wrong. We exist on the preventative side of the scale. And this involves continuous monitoring. There are specific monitoring officers who follow the process through and record as we do what we do. And this allows us to institute corrective actions if necessary. And the public would know that in that case, we have a traceability system in place where every batch has specific numbers so we can tell at any given time something on the shelf in a supermarket, when it was made, how it was made, in what batch it was made, and how many of that particular thing are in circulation and where they are. So in the event that we have to recall something in case there's a problem, we know how to do it and how to get them back so that the public is kept safe the whole time. And that's part of the corrective actions which are in place. The recall procedures are listed. And so we verify what we do by taking samples at all times on the value chain to make sure that things are in order. And the records are kept for a significant period of time so that if there was ever a problem relating to a particular batch, we can go back to the QA department, get samples of the batches which were stored for that product and to analyze them as we go. That's basically how the value chain operates. We have good manufacturing practices with special designated things that we have to do. The ISO standards, not only for the facilities, but for people and for the products we manage. And we have a significant extension service that involves technicians, engineering specialists, agricultural specialists, a team of veterinarians in the field and all that monitor everything through from start to finish, as my colleague said earlier, and from farm to fork and beyond. In agribusiness, we go beyond that, but I think perhaps I can stop here and pick up later on.
So, Dr. Emil, listening to you, the calls to action, it's clear that, you guys are playing a role with respect to not just grow it safe, but keep it safe, ensure it's safe, and know what's safe by the method of the quality management and the preventative management systems that you currently have in place so far and stuff. Good stuff. I'm sure the public, Jamaicans are heavy. You hear about Jamaica boilers, you think chicken, right? And so the Jamaicans are heavy eaters of chicken. I mean, I know for myself and so forth. And so
I am Caribbean broilers, incidentally. Jamaica broilers are the other people.
my apologies, my apologies.
But from the Cabin Poultry Association's perspective, I talk for all the poultry industry.
All the poultry industry say, a man that wear a very broad hat, and therefore, so it's good to know that one of our main item that we consume, that there are measures, good measures, I must say, that are in place to ensure it's safe, and so that we can consume it safe. Dr. Watson, I will never miss an opportunity to invite you to be a part of this conversation. The researcher, the innovator, the entrepreneur. Um, Talk to me about talk to us about what the SRC is doing to support food safety for now and tomorrow.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us. Of course, I would not miss the opportunity to be here to speak with you as well as my fellow panelists and to share with the public in terms of what it is that is happening with regards to food safety and what we're doing in order to ensure that you can be confident in the products that you're consuming. Now, the SRC, as you know, is the government principal research agency responsible for the coordination of scientific research and its application. Now, when it comes to, so we play a role in many areas, but more specifically, when it comes to food safety, we are facilitatory in helping to support the production and the assessment of products. So from the production side of things, the SRC, through our product research and development division, as well as our food pilot plant, the only one in the island, we facilitate the creation or production of food following prescribed guidelines using whether it be GMP, HACCP, to develop foods that are standardized that will meet required quality standards to be specific. So from concept right through to production, the SRC does somewhat of a hand-holding to guide you through designing and developing that product to working through the processing that is required to ensure that food is safe at the end of the day for general consumption. So you find that persons, depending on the scale that they're operating, will follow different protocols. Once it is that you're looking to produce a product for mass consumption, you must be able to be sure that that food is safe. And we're talking about safe from several parameters. You're looking at your chemical parameters and your microbial parameters. So the SRC does what we call process scheduling, or process schedule or scheduled process, depending on the kind of food it is, to ensure that the steps that you're taking in producing that food will yield a product that is safe for consumption. And then on the other part of it is testing. Now, if you're not able to assess, how would you know that it's actually safe? So we actually have our analytical services department, which offer testing services similar to what the Bureau of Standards does in assessing your products to ensure that they meet the required standards that are set out for the respective food item. So those are the ways that SRC is playing its role in ensuring that your food is safe for consumption. There are other things that we could look at in terms of from the production scale, from you're looking at crop production, ensuring that the crop is disease-free. That aspect of things, you're looking at the whole value chain. But in terms of when it gets to you, the consumer, we do it mainly by offering our testing services to verify and confirm that the food is safe, as well as helping to ensure that the processes or production protocols that are in place are correct to ensure at the end of the day the product produced will meet the required standards.
So a full end-to-end system the SRC has in place to ensure food safety here in Jamaica. Very good information coming forward. I'm sure those in the public and the virtual land here are learning a few stuff. I can tell you myself, it's pretty good to learn about some stuff about the SRC and what you are currently doing to ensure food safety for our society. I have two hands, our attendees, Joseph Small and Audrey Thomas. So I like to go to them to get the question. As I said, I want to keep it pretty interactive, and there's what our panelists has to share, and there are the questions that our attendees have for us, and we want to bring them in at this time. So I'll go with Joseph Small.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Stewart, if you would just kindly ask questions again for me, please.
The question we pose is, what is it their entities are currently doing to ensure food safety in Jamaica?
Okay. I myself is from the CB group of companies. And what we are doing is to ensure that we not only meet regulatory requirements for food safety, be it for the public health system, the Bureau of Standards and Veterinary Services Division and otherwise, but we also strive to meet international standard. And while we would have met this standard for HACCP, for example, or for the Food Safety Modernization Act, having persons trained and operating as preventive control qualified individuals in the system, we also go for other global food safety initiative, safe food practices, for example, SQF certification, where you look at your primary production system and ensure it meets all the requirements there. You go for your manufacturing entities and make sure it meets all the requirements there. And then into the after sales services, you do things to ensure that food safety is guaranteed in the marketplace. So you use customer audits, for example, where you look at the temperature of the refrigerators that the food is stored in the after sales service side from a company perspective, and so on and so forth.
Joseph, I'm going to make a plug here because that is very good to hear, because in Jamaica, one of the things we always complain about is the after sales service. We feel that, after things are sold, there's nothing, no follow-up, nothing that is done. So this is very good information to learn that there's an entity or the entities in Jamaica who are actually practicing after sales service and ensuring that food is safe.
And while I'm not speaking for every single entity, I'm saying that the best in class ones are doing those things, of which the organization I work for does those things. Customer complaints systems are also in place where you seek to get information via our online platforms, whether someone is complaining about that through an email or in cyberspace on Facebook or otherwise. So you look for all those sources, in addition to which the sales reps and the trade experience specialists are on the ground looking for the facilitation of trade and ensuring that the customer is satisfied and that the after sales service is well executed. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution, Joseph, coming in there. Again, interesting points being made to assure the public that at least one particular entity is ensuring that food is safe. And as you said, majority of the if we want to use the term A-list entities are practicing and playing those roles to ensure that food is safe for now and for a healthy tomorrow. We have Audrey Thomas. So I'd like to go to Audrey Thomas at this time. Yeah. Ms. Thomas? So we're not getting. Ms. Thomas, the floor is yours. All right, so we're not getting Ms. Thomas at this time. At this time, we're gonna take a small break. We're gonna play a video at this time. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna continue the discussion with the panel because we wanna talk a little bit about present actions that each entity are what they're doing currently in this day now, what is being done to ensure safe food for now.
We join the world in celebrating World Food Safety Day.
The distillery has been around for centuries. The standard of the products that we produce here is of supreme quality. We ensure that all food safety measures are applied in our operations.
We practice food safety by washing our hands at our wash station, where we have soap, water, and towels. We also wear hard boots and safety hats and goggles to protect ourselves.
Right, so the importance of practicing food safety in the lab is really to ensure that we keep the environment sterile, we have everything in a set place, and we handle things properly so that things don't get contaminated.
As a quality assurance manager,
as a HACCP coordinator,
As a lab analyst,
as an administrative environmental health and safety officer,
as a distillation technician,
as a production supervisor,
We join the world in celebrating World Food Safety Day.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our panelists. I'm just going to invite our panelists to unmute when you're ready to speak, because we had muted everyone and playing off that video. And welcome back to our attendees who are joining us virtually today. You know, to close out the first session of the panel discussion, you know, I started to reflect on what my entity, Jamaica Customs Agency, is doing with respect to ensuring food safety. And I went all the way back to the vision and the mission of the agency and the mandates that we have with respect to trade facilitation and border protection. And I tried to twin them in my head to think about, you know, the movement of safe food through our ports coming in to release it in for home consumption, and what role we play from a border protection standpoint. And you know, it's important for persons to know that the agency performs what we call a agency function with respect to a supporting role for the border regulatory agencies. So the Ministry of Health and Wellness, with respect to the public health, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, and we talk about Plant Quarantine Division and the Veterinary Division. And so, you know, customs, we're there at the border, and we perform these regulatory functions in ensuring that, you know, food that are coming in, whether by, you know, persons carrying it personally or through commercial wise, that, you know, the requisites, permits, and license are obtained. But, you know, the society needs to know that the end game of this is really for the protection of society. That's what it is. You know, from time to time, you know, we have issues with persons, you know, they travel, they're coming in from overseas, they're carrying the apples, the pears, the meat, you know, you name it, persons are carrying stuff. And then when we have to seize these items or detain these items for the requisite permits or license, people sometimes feel offended or so forth. So it's good that we're doing this so that we can share with persons as to, you know, the reason behind why we do the things we do, which at the end game with respect to food is to ensure that there's food safety for our society and for our communities. I want to kickstart the second half of the panel discussion here, looking at, you know, present actions that each entity is doing. Dr. Emil, I want to start with you, leaning more to the private sector side. You know, currently, what are some of the immediate actions that, you know, your entity, Caribbean Ball, is doing with respect to food safety?
Following on from what you're just talking about, let me explain to the public that we have what is called rules of origin in place. And nothing can be used in Jamaica imported from another country where that thing is not proven to be used in that country. In other words, because of our limited capacity to do analyses of everything, we require an assurance and certificates to back up what we do, that the ingredients we are importing to incorporate into our feeds are ingredients that are used in the country from which it's being imported. In other words, we want to be assured that you are safeguarding your own people with a product that's safe and sound before you send that product to us here. In the old days, we had many problems where things that had expired or no longer used in developed countries were shipped to the third world countries. Now we stand guard against that, where the rules of origin dictate that the product that we're importing must be one that is used in your country and is deemed safe. Another reason why we start there is that we are in a value chain that ultimately is looking at exporting products we create to those countries. And those countries will not accept the inclusion in the product that we manufacture of anything that's not approved and considered safe by them. This is where we start with the ingredients we use. But right at the beginning, we at the bottom of the value chain, we do research and development work, well, and would include organizations such as the SRC to make sure that the product that we are attempting to grow is growable, that we have the right variety. There are numerous varieties of particular products, whether it's peas and beans or onions or sweet potatoes, that we have the right one suitable for a tropical environment and so on. And incidentally, the Caribbean Broilers Group is a diversified organization. We're not only involved in poultry, we're into pig and pork production, we're into egg and egg production, we're into fruits and vegetables, onions, scotch bonnet peppers, sorrel, sweet potatoes, and so on. We have a wide range of products that we're involved in. Sea Island cotton is one of them that we produce and export. So we need to know what the end users require, and that's where we start. Nothing must be produced that cannot be marketed. And having picked the products to work on, we have to create the systems to multiply them. So the biotechnology systems that will propagate and multiply the products that will go on to the field for multiplication have to be in place. So the research work associated with broiler production is done by our associates in the United States, so that we have the right broilers to grow. The eggs come under the same category, but then we have products here where we try out, and to do that there has to be an extension service. We have an elaborate extension service with graduates of the College of Agriculture, veterinarians, and associates who work in the field to train farmers how to do it in the right way and in the appropriate quantities. And having done that, we now go on to the finished products into processing, where we are creating state-of-the-art processing plants. We're in the process of creating the most modern poultry processing operation in the entire Caribbean, which will be activated before the end of the year. And on the plant side, we go into grading and to make sure that the various quality products are available for local population and for export. Storage is extremely important. A lot of products are lost during storage with the right temperature, the right environment, and so on is important. And again, the transport between where we produce it and the public gets it is very critical. 40% of what is being produced in Jamaica is currently lost through improper storage and transport. And we are therefore emphasizing these in an effort to be more profitable and more efficient in what we do, and to be assured that the fresh products we started out with arrive at the consumer as fresh as they possibly can. But then we go on in the value chain to product differentiation. This is the age when we are into convenience foods, ready to eat, microwavable, and so on, ready to cook. And so we have to be involved in research and development of differentiated products to make them easily available to the supermarkets. Beyond that, in trying to go across international borders, we have to look at the possibility of hermetically sealed products. We have to look at the possibility of canning and so on, that the products can survive for long periods of time. And the ingredients used have to match those that the international end users require. And so we are constantly monitoring all this to make sure we do it right. But one of the things we also have to do, which Jamaica is guilty of not having done, is to develop proper branding and packaging and labeling procedures, so that our intellectual rights can be preserved. Um, Jerk pork, genuine made in Jamaica, genuine Scotch bonnet peppers and pimentos, Blue Mountain coffee, um, from our Blue Mountains, genuine stuff for which we can get a proper price and so on. Otherwise, what we have pilferage and stealing on the international market, where everywhere across the world you see people producing Jamaican-like products, piggybacking on the Jamaican brand. We even see Jamaican style akis being produced in countries in Africa and Haiti and so on, because we have not taken due care to safeguard our intellectual property and so on. So there's a lot of work to be done. And as you will have ascertained, it involves not just cutlass and forks, but it involves trained biotechnologists, it involves trained specialists in the field, veterinarians, agriculturists. It involves trained people in the processing facilities, and to safeguard international markets and international property rights. It actually requires lawyers and people who understand the target market, and it requires the people who can speak on the target market, marketers, because there's no point producing something and sending it to a country who will not use it because they don't understand what it is or how to use it. So the value chain is very complex, and clearly it involves the other will speak on that, training right up the line, adjustment of the education system right up to university level, so that we have the right people to inject into the value chain at every step of the way, so that we can work. So what we are involved in is rather complex. We're doing it, and we're doing it successfully. Um, and so Jamaica may be little, but we're Talawa.
Thank you, Dr. Emil. Listening to you, I picked out a call for action with respect to the intellectual property right work that needs to be done by us here in Jamaica to preserve and protect our produces or products that we are producing and sending across the shores. I'm sure on the platform there are other regulatory agencies, government regulatory agencies that has such mandate or responsibility, and it would be good to hear them weigh in on this. So I'm throwing it out there. But before I go to Dr. Watson, we have Walcott Boswick and hand raised in from our attendees, and I like to heal to that person to hear what they have to say. Bostwick? Kendall? Kendall? All right, so we're not getting this person. Dr. Watson, similar question posing to you. The present action by the SRC to ensure safe food now, what does that mean currently to ensure food are safe at this time?
Okay, so in keeping with SRC's facilitatory or supportive role, so one of the things that we have been doing is expanding the services which we offer, especially in our testing capabilities. So we have an emerging market as it relates to mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, which persons consume. So the SRC has been looking at what is happening, what are the trends, what are the emerging products that are coming out, and what assessment will be necessary in order to render them safe for consumption. So we are continually increasing or improving or expanding our scope of tests that we offer. And also within that, we're expanding the tests that are accredited. Now, I would like to say that Jamaica do have a very active or very good laboratory testing industry. There are several labs. There are at least 4 government labs, as well as about 6 or more private labs. And many of the food production facilities, at least the bigger ones, also have internal quality labs that do assessment of the products at different points in that production cycle. So the SRC is continually looking at what the needs are, what are the products, and what are the tests that would be required to ensure persons can access these services in order to ensure that their products are meeting required safety guidelines. Other things that we do, Dr. Amiel mentioned, is training. We offer training in production, standardization, GMP, as well as HACCP. So we offer training in all these areas that are critical in developing systems and ensuring that your manufacturing protocols are meeting the required safety guidelines that at the end of the day will result in a product that meets the standards that you want them to meet. Other things that we do is, of course, assessing. We're looking to increase the level of consultatory service that we offer to manufacturers. It's an area that we have received a lot of requests in, and we're looking to expand on these consultative services that we offer so that manufacturers, and this is more in the medium to small scale manufacturers that might not be able to have a full-fledged quality department on board, or have different level of expertise internally where the SRC can come in and offer that support. So these are some of the areas that we are expanding what it is that we offer. Another critical area, because when we think about safety, sometimes we think just of the profile of the food in terms of whether it have the right chemical constituents, whether it have extraneous excipients, or whether it have microbial contamination, but just the composition of the food itself can become a safety concern for persons. So in terms of nutritional fact panel, SRC offers that service. We do it via database, which is very quick and efficient and accurate because it's a database which collates information on respective food items. And based on your formulation, it can tell you what is the macronutrients or micronutrients that are present in that food item. And if it's a food that is unique and there's no data on the constituents in there, we do it via analysis. So we can tell you what the nutritional profile of your food is. And that is now becoming a safety concern for many persons who have dietary restrictions. So it's not just the microbial load and the chemical load, but just the general profile of the food is a consideration. And SRC in its role offer services to help you to assess your food in a complete way, to know what is in it and what you're getting out of it. So those are the things that we're doing. I should mention though that we are also expanding our production capacity in order to assist more persons that are in the micro level to move in the medium or the small and be able to produce their products in a facility that will help them to meet the required safety consideration and that their product will have the profile that they need it to have.
Dr. Watts, I don't want to give away too much because I'm going to come with a question for the future. All right?
Okay.
Future, I'm going to come with it. Ms. Campbell, before I come to you, it's interesting that I should point out the work in which the Codex Committee is doing with respect to establishing certain standards that governs I guess Dr. Emil mentioned, the labeling and the packaging. And so there's much work that is being done. I guess much more is still required. And sometimes it's a means of enforcement that is required to move things from, I like to say, move things from plans to implementation, execution that might be required. But interestingly, before I come to you, Ms. Campbell, we have a question from Seabait Mitchell, or a statement question, if I might pose it like that. It says, while the GOJ and the private sector experts work assiduously to ensure that food is produced in a safe environment, it occurs to me that the issue of predatory larceny does not only have an impact on the economy, but also compromises food safety. What are the views of the panelists on this matter? So, Ms. Campbell, I guess I'm doubling up where you're concerned. I have the question as to what CAC is doing currently with respect to food safety for now, and I want to throw this question in the mix at the same time.
Yes, let me respond to the question first. What our role as the Consumer Affairs Commission, where that is concerned, is to educate consumers about understanding the dynamics of the marketplace. So, as we say, if it's too good to be true, then you understand what the rest of that maxim is. The food that is being sold on the market, know your source. We tend to be creatures of habit. Know your source. You know your meat shop. You know your supermarkets or your grocery store or your wholesale. Do not purchase food items, especially fresh food items, from persons who you know are not involved in the business. So we say to consumers at all times to ensure that what you're getting is clean and the source is clean. Make sure that your supplier is a consistent person that you know within your network, maybe not personally, but within your network. We have to secure ourselves, and very often it is a responsibility, and we keep saying the scales of the Consumer Affairs Commission is rights on one side and responsibility on the other. So every right comes with a responsibility. So while we know that there's a prevalence of predatory larceny, we also must understand that if the price of the product seems off the chart or below the market price, then you need to have a red flag and question those things. But I know that there are other entities of the state that are handling issues of predatory larceny, but where the consumers are concerned, we say be watchful and also be a little bit more vigilant and ask more questions before you make a purchase.
We have a personal
So
responsibility.
yes,
Now it's
I
going we have a personal responsibility in those.
exactly, exactly. So now to the issue of the consumer's role of what it is that we're doing now in terms of safe food, promoting food safety. We understand the balance, and for us, and I'm so glad that Dr. Sharia mentioned this, that there is a concern for consumers now about the nutritional value of food. So it is, and the pandemic has highlighted this and underscored this so greatly, that people are more concerned about the nutritional value of their meals than they were prior to the pandemic. And it is highlighted by the experts, by counselors, by food scientists, by marketers. The reports are out there. So the Consumer Affairs Commission has always been involved on the healthy promotional side, because one of the basic rights of the consumer is to ensure that you have a healthy environment. And if you deep dive into some of the functions of the Consumer Affairs Commission, you recognize that our market surveillance is heavily on food access, food availability, as well as reasonable price. So we monitor that. Our research department, they survey basic food items. We published the items surveyed by the Ministry of Agriculture, farm gate food, fresh food, and so on. So we're part of that, where we highlight um, what is available, where you can access it, and the cost. And we also provide a tool on our website where the consumer can go on and use that traffic light um, notification for items to see whether or not, not as precise as the SRC would have it, but it indicates to you when you have a balanced basket. So the items you select on the price inquiry tool, you can identify whether it is high in vitamin C or vitamin D, or you need more green or more orange food in the basket, or that kind of thing. You can go in, identify the location, the store, the item, and the cost, and create a virtual basket to develop your own, but just not only for budgeting, but also for the nutritional content of that basket. To specifically what the organization is doing in terms of promoting a healthy lifestyle. In 2015, our World Consumer Rights Day focused on healthy diets. And from that data, it was over $11 billion that the Ministry of Health had identified that they were spending on just corrective action and hospitalization and medication for the, the, the NCDs that were showing, the non-communicable disease, the diabetes, the hypertension, the cardiac, infarctions, and so on. And so we decided that we're going to emphasize and work a little bit more on the healthy side. So in terms of that, we work with NGOs like the Heart Foundation. We're part of the Ministry of Health and Wellness Food Task Force, which currently is engaged in having the reformulation of some foods that are distributed to schools um, while they're closed now, in school canteens and so on. So they would have reduced sugar and salt content in order to improve the health of the children. We're also engaged in the promotion of the front labeling on products, which we support, so to influence the behavior of consumers to simply identify what it is that they're consuming and how much is the nutritional value, how much salt, sugars, and how much nutritional minerals, etc., that is in the food that they're eating. Because I don't think Jamaicans are reading enough enough labels. So we are part of that campaign. We work along with other entities, the NCRAs and the other regulatory bodies as well. We're also responsible for the risk communication as under the food safety policy recall procedure, which the National Agricultural Health um, Coordinated Committee has an oversight responsibility. So the Consumer Affairs Commission is responsible for the communication risk um, policy, where the notification from private entities or regulatory bodies or wherever the reports come from, we're responsible for managing that information, whether or not it is for public consumption or to the private sector for corrective action, or if it requires compensation or exchange on behalf of the consumer, then we instruct as to exactly what the procedure should be for the consumer. We also are responsible for the inter-exchange among our counterparts within the region. Because as Dr. Emil pointed out, it's the market, it's a shared market. So while he pointed out about the country of origin rules, we also understand that the distributors share market within the region. So if a product reaches Jamaica, it is highly likely that that product is on the shelves in St. Lucia and Grenada and Antigua and other member states within the region. So we share information to mitigate against any potential harm the recalls are concerned. And we are also part of the National Codex Committee, um, and the Bureau of Standards of Jamaica. We're also represented on their working committees for the development of standards, whether it has to do with packaging or any other item. Representatives from the Consumer Affairs Commission are also on that panel. We also partner with the Bureau or the Food Storage and Prevention of Infestation Division, where there are incidents of extraneous matter in foods or where there is a foodborne um, incident. We also lean on their expertise to determine the validity and or to eliminate any assumptions made by consumer in their report. I must say that based on the $21.9 million which we secured on behalf of consumers for the recent financial year, um, less than 3% of that is represented for food and beverages um, complaints. And I must say that we don't retain any of the cash we collect on behalf of consumers. It goes directly to them. But on a category of maybe 12 or 13 items, food and beverages is around about the ninth item on the scale. And we have given like about 24 advice for persons who have shown concern about an issue. But we have received over maybe around 40 complaints, which we have investigated. And majority of those complaints are related to um, um, we assume, and in some of those it comes out in the wash, that is storage. As Dr. Emil pointed out, that we lose 40% of some of the foods in transportation and storage. Majority of those complaints has to do with storage when the other regulatory bodies do their investigation. We realize that it's either a mold in a Tetra Pak because the temperature was not right, or they found, um, you know, a worm in a sandwich or something. And lately, to add to um, Dr. Shiraz's point, the emerging industries and emerging markets, we need now to start looking at them because we are having um, complaints on social media from consumers receiving poorly presented foods by delivery, the new delivery services while under lockdown. So that's another area that is now being added to our work.
So we're going to
And I'm
talk
proud of it.
We're going to talk more about that when we get to the final segment of the discussion, looking at the future and what the CAC will be doing going forward. But just to point out, coming from the volume of information that you have provided just clearly, we're seeing a robust education and an awareness program that is being rolled out or continued to be rolled out by the CAC. We're seeing active investigations that are being done by the CAC to respond to consumer complaints. And we're seeing also Team Up for Food Safety, a call for action by the WHO, that already we have some amount of activities that are taking place with respect to Team Up for Food Safety. So on the same point of the Prada Larson, I want to throw it out to the other panelists. I don't know, Dr. Watson or Dr. Emil, what's your perspective where this is concerned?
Yeah, if I can point out with respect to pre-delasting, the proper way that one handles meats on the market is that every animal, whether it be chicken or pig or goat, is to be subject to an ante-mortem inspection before slaughter. In other words, the public health inspectors and the persons responsible would have a specific report on an animal which they have seen, that it's well, that it's not ill, that it doesn't have any residual chemicals in it, and so on, before it's processed or slaughtered. And this brings us to the point where it's important to look at branding or labeling, because the stolen products cannot claim to have been inspected ante-mortem, and they cannot claim to have a reputable trademark on them, because they've bypassed the proper procedure that we have in place. So look out for the brand. One thing, though, that I'd like to touch on is the propaganda in the public's mind about what is what and what is not. A popular one, for instance, is no hormones. You see it all over the place. No hormones added. No hormones have ever been added to any meat produced in Jamaica for the past 50 years. But because of sort of ignorance on the part of the public, it's used to try and get a strategic advantage. Caribbean broilers is younger than 50 years, so there's never been a hormone used on any product it has ever produced in its history. So the fact that we haven't bought a $250,000 ad in the Gleaner to say that we haven't doesn't mean that we have. And this propaganda is up to the present day. We have one now on no antibiotics added and so on. The reality is that any animal properly grown goes through a period of withdrawal rations. The rations that are fed in the weeks prior to slaughter have no extraneous chemicals in them whatsoever. So the meat from that company on the market is free of antibiotics, hormones, or any other chemical, and has always been. But some whiz kid from some marketing department has thought in recent times that they'd use these strategies to try and gain a market advantage over the other. And it's really a ridiculous misuse of funds that could have been better given to orphanages or somewhere else to help the youth develop. So these distortions need to be pointed out. There's a difference between propaganda and real science and technology, and wherever we see it, we will point it out, because it's the efforts that tend to mislead the public in what to buy or what not to buy are unfortunate, coming from supposedly reputable companies. But pre-Delasny, We should not, unfortunately, farmers and so on don't plan for them. And so when they lose their animals, they go under and go bankrupt. I'm told that in countries like Israel, they plan in the production process that 5% to 10% of the products will be lost. And that's in the costing system, so that there are no surprises at the end that only 90% of what we produced passed on in the public system. And I think we need to look at our approach to business in an effort to deal with this pre-elastic problem, in addition to getting the security forces onto the problem, and so as to ensure sustainability and continuity.
Thank you, Dr. Emil. I'm going to throw another question in the mix before Dr. Watson, if you're going to weigh in on the Larson, but maybe this one, definitely, maybe this, well, I see a signal, me know, but maybe this one, seeing that you do the testing and you mentioned that, the SRC is capable of telling you what goes in your product and what you can get out of your product. So here we have Rajiv Brooks. He says, I have a question in regards to possible false labeling. Most of the margarine and butter on our food shelves claim to be trans fat free. And I can tell you, I looked over that too, right? Are these products actually free of trans fat, or is it that it is at a certain level where it is considered absent? As far as I'm aware, how these products are produced, they should contain trans fat. Dr. Watson, I yield to you.
Thank you for that question. And it really comes back to what my fellow panelists have been saying as it relates to paying attention to who you buy from, where you buy from, ensuring that they're reputable. For your products to be on the shelves in the supermarket, fully labeled, they would have gone through some amount of scrutiny and approval for them to be on the shelves. I do know that is an ideal setting, that all the products that are on our supermarket shelves with labels would have gone through the required steps to get there, but we know that is not so. When it comes to your margarines, though, if it's been labeled as zero trans fat, then it would have had a certificate of analysis to confirm this, which would allow that label to be approved. The body which does approval of food labels is Bureau of Standards. And if it's coming from a company outside of Jamaica, if it's produced outside of Jamaica, then their relevant documentation would also support the labeling that is on these packages. So I would want to think and be confident and say, yes, if it says zero trans fat, and it's coming from a reputable source that have gone through the appropriate channels to be on our shelves, then you can trust the label with what is stated on it.
I have a follow-up question. So I guess I'm piggybacking on Rajiv's question. And to my ignorance, I have not really paid deep attention to labeling. I think after this session, I'm going to be one that is scrutinizing all the labels. Let's see what's on this thing. Is there anything on the product that to indicate to the consumer that, maybe BSJ has approved this labeling and such forth?
There would be nothing outright that would tell you, except there are certain regulations or information that must be on a label, the layout of the label as well, the regulation that guides the labeling will tell you. So there are certain things that you can look out for that you can say, yes, this label is legitimate or this one is not. This label might have gone through certain kind of scrutiny while this one have not. If you're looking at a label and there is text that is less than 0.4, I believe, less than 4, or there's anything on it that you cannot read, then chances are it have not gone through appropriate scrutiny. If you look on the label and there's no English on there, considering that this is Jamaica, an English-speaking country, it means that that product highly likely have not gone through any scrutiny to be approved to be on our shelves. if you look on the label and you're not seeing contact information for the manufacturer, it means that that product have not gone through the appropriate scrutiny. If you look on the label and you're not seeing net weight, so there's some general basic things. You're not seeing the name of the company that it was made, then it's highly likely that that product did not go under any scrutiny. Now, knowing exactly what should be on the label, it also means that those who are not going through the proper channels can also design and prepare the label properly and can still pass under that. The best thing I say that you can do is contact the BSG. They will have a listing of all the approved products that should be and can be on our shelves. If you have concern because you've interacted with a product and something just seems off to you, trust your judgment and contact Bureau of Standards. They will be able to confirm whether or not that particular manufacturer has gone through the required scrutiny for the respective product you're looking at for it to be on the shelves. But there's some very clear red flags that you can see right away. There's no English, no contact information for the manufacturer. If there's anything on the label that you cannot read, then you know something is definitely wrong. Just to point out, our products currently are not mandated to have a nutritional fact panel on it. And but we are now moving into that direction. So I believe Ms. Campbell mentioned the task force, the food task force that has been established and been operational for several years now. And there are steps being put in place to ensure that the entities such as the Bureau of Standards, BSG, can provide appropriate services to facilitate the full industry. If we have just two labs that is supposed to be servicing the entire industry, can imagine a bottleneck that could potentially create. So steps are being put in place to ensure that the necessary support systems are in place to facilitate a full implementation of that label law to ensure for nutritional fact panel to be on all products. So that's something that we're working through, and we'll be getting there very, very soon, I believe.
So Dr. Watson, I'm going to follow up, and maybe this is also for Ms. Campbell. So Rajiv, he has a follow-up question or follow-up statement, and he's saying, yes, BSJ has, standards, labor requirements for products sold locally. However, he has observed that there are several products on the shelves with non-English language. So my question is, what is the mechanism or the enforcement in place to deal with situations like that?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Just to say that the body of complaints we receive regarding food also includes complaints about packaging without English. No translation, other languages, no English. What we ask consumers to do, because the Consumer Affairs Commission and our team of authority, including the administrative staff, it's hardly likely that we'll be able to pick up all the island-wide, all the infractions. But what happened is that consumers, we ask them, and they do utilize the digital platform. Take pictures when you come across these products. Take a picture with your phone, send it to us. We forward this to the Compliance and Regulatory Authority and the Bureau of Standards. But we ask consumers constantly, identify the location where you saw the product, because the officers at the regulatory bodies cannot check on these or investigate if they don't know where to go. So you need to identify the location and address. And just send us a picture on any one of the social media platforms. The Bureau of Standards also has a mechanism where you can report and submit the pictures, etc. So they can use the digital platform to report these incidents, and it will be investigated. So the Bureau of Standards, under their regulation, they have the provisions to confiscate and remove things from the shelves. The Consumer Protection Act does not give you that power. So we have to report these to the Bureau of Standards in order for them to have it.
Okay. So the BSJ is the enforcement arm with respect dealing with such matter. Very good information for the public to know. Good, Rajiv. Thank you for those questions, and thank you, the panelists, for your responses. I'm seeing Tafara Smith and is up. I would want to, before we go to the break, to take that next video. I'd like to yield to Smith. Smith, you can unmute. The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. Sorry for the display. I didn't realize that that's what's up. All right, so I'm Tafara Smith from Bureau Standards Jamaica. I just want to add a little bit of clarity or correction there. When you say the BSJ is responsible for the regulatory arm, I'd want us to use the National Regulatory and Compliance Authority, that is the NCRA, once joined with the BSJ. However, they are the regulatory arm. So they would be responsible for all of what you just said in terms of regulating the marketplace, in terms of food safety and stuff like that, not the BSJ. So the BSJ.
Thank you, sorry for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Smith, you're educating us. You know, us we're used to just saying the BSJ. Now we have to, based on what you have said, we now have the BSJ and the NCRA, and learning that the NCRA is more the compliance and enforcement arm with respect to these things. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I think there's another question. Let me ask this question before we go to the break. Clive Harris is saying, are we getting this information to the general population? A lot of food incidents aren't reported because the population is unaware of the process. He follows up with another question, say, persons like myself who studied food science is aware of these, but the Jamaican population is really unaware of these labeling laws. I go to the panelists. Anyone at this time can weigh in.
Well,
Go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
I just want to say I can't speak for the National Compliance and Regulator Authority, which gave birth just a few years ago when the regulatory arm, based on WTO rules, the regulator to separate from the monitoring and the bureau testing had to be separated from the regulatory arm, the monitoring arm. So, but however, the consumers are still, and I think we have some work to do to assist the NCRA with that. They're still not identifying with the new entity. So in order for them to understand, we keep having to refer to the bureau. So after a while, we need to be able for them to identify with the right entity. However, I just want to say that the food safety incidents that are reported, very often, the consumer will call on spot the Consumer Affairs Commission, and we will to have the issue resolved as speedily as possible, whether it is the first step, say, reported to the manufacturer, the supplier, the distributor, retailer, because we want to give, we are part of the triangular economic activity. So we want to give the private sector, the distributor, the manufacturer, an opportunity to identify, verify, observe what the consumer is dissatisfied with. So that's part of our role is to also the quality assurance manager at X entity. We have received X report that a certain extraneous matter was found in, because very often the consumer has already used the item, the package is open, it's hard to verify. Only someone involved in the processes of manufacturing and persons like Dr. Schreier would be able to tell you whether that item entered pre, post, or during. So very often, sometimes it will come out in wash, that the way the item may appear or is seen, then it must have happened after, or it must have happened. we allow them an opportunity to resolve. If it is unresolved, then we take it to the next level. We have the bureau test it, and we go to the next level, we have it out analyzed, and so on. However, where the labeling is concerned, as Doc just mentioned, it is a consumer who we lean on to help us to identify the thousands of products that are on shelves out there. When you see a single one that violates what you consider or what you know to be a standard label, the contents of the standard label. And the Bureau has mounted several campaigns. I think currently there's a YouTube video on how to read food labels that was done by them as well. I've used that myself to brush up. So I'm asking the consumers in this pandemic, we were going to ask you to be a little bit more vigilant and independent. Go to the digital platforms, go to the search engine, the item that you require, the information on, under any of these regulatory bodies, SRC, if you need to develop, get a new model for your product and an idea to be put on the market, labeling, and so on. And if you see any breaches on the market or what you suspect to be breaches, you can go to any of our platforms or the compliance or regulatory body and post and a report. We will respond and investigate together or report it. If it's a criminal matter like larceny, we also report it to the police.
Okay. Dr. Watson, you wanted to weigh in? I have another question, and I'm
just to point out that when it comes to food, a part of the portfolio for oversight in what we consume, what comes into the island, also falls under the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So as it relates to the question that was posed in terms of public knowledge and public awareness, we do agree that it can be enhanced a lot more, and so that the public can be greater aware and know what it is to look out for. So from where we sit in terms of the panelists here, we can definitely make greater representation to the relevant ministries, agency, in order to have more effective public campaign out to help persons be more aware and to understand what it is that they are seeing when they go into the marketplace to help safeguard their health and wellness.
all right. So I'm asking my producers, I'll ask my producers to give us an additional 10 to 15 because it's likely that we might run over 12 o'clock because the questions are rolling in, and I wouldn't want to persons to leave without having their questions answered. So we have Rowan Campbell, who pointed out that is an international certified organic producer. Much of the local foods labeled as organic have had no certifications. Over the years, no action has been taken on this. Organic certification is to protect the consumer. Jamaica is a national standard, but it is not being policed at all. Can we make a start? And there's a call out to CAC, we need to. So I'll start with CAC, and then I don't know if Dr. Watson, you want to weigh in, but I want to hear from Dr. Emil as to his perspective. I know he has made a call out for more effective labeling of Jamaican products to protect the intellectual property right, but with respect to what is happening locally, what is his perspective on the matter? Let me go to Ms. Campbell, and then I go to Dr. Emil. Or you know what, let me take Dr. Emil first, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Campbell.
The trouble is we're not using all the communication channels available to us. What you're talking about should be expressed in reggae or dancehall or soca, and it would reach a few more people. We do have a problem which we don't like to talk about, a literacy problem, where they will hear it, but they will not read it. The truth of the matter is that if we were to check on the amount of newspapers published today, you'd be alarmed that it's just a few thousand. There are not that many ways of communicating. So we have to use all the other ways available and the popular ways that the public likes, so they'll listen to you in dancehall format or reggae, and the message may get across. Um, but you know, you have to repeat and repeat and repeat. The refractory period between you putting something out there and it being accepted can be months or even years sometimes. So that we need not be weary in well doing. We just have to keep at it, and we have to get it into the education system from early on. It's not there yet. None of these things are in the formal secondary education system. So if it's not there, it doesn't exist. It's one of the problems we have in communication, and so we need to look at how best we can deal with it. Um, the thing earlier with the Bureau reporting things to the Bureau standards, and I understand the Bureau standards sensitivity and their immediate response. The Bureau standards, as I understand it, is there to help um, businesses, industries, companies develop new ideas and to verify that they're okay. If they think that the Bureau standards are policemen and that are looking to lock them up and so on, they will not communicate with them. And this is not in the country's interest, because we need to expose our new ideas and our new creations to the Bureau standards, the SRC, without fear of them ridiculing us or putting us down. But those are just some of my ideas.
All right, appreciate Dr. Emil. Ms. Campbell.
Yes, just to point out that the National Agricultural Health and Food Safety Coordinating Committee has developed a communication plan that is the whole focus, the whole purpose of that is to address exactly what we're discussing right now. It is to educate consumers about the entire food production, what today is about more awareness in terms of how the food is produced and harvested and all the other stuff that goes into um, having safe foods for the population. So the agencies of government under the three ministries that comprise that oversight committee are working hard to ensure that that will come on stream soon enough. The other aspect of having the public fully engaged and learning about the different regulations and what the government is doing about food safety. It's a hard nut to crack. From where we're sitting, we know that, as Dr. Emil pointed out, consistent, repetitive messaging is what we actually need in order to change behavior. And it's not just Jamaica, but we're a nut to crack. And this is a TikTok generation. Dr. Emil said dancehall and reggae, but we find that over time, the attention span, even on in the digital space, is becoming shorter and shorter. When we just started YouTube, you could have a 10-minute video on YouTube and you will get an audience to go. No, it has to be 6 minutes or less. You know, Facebook, 30 seconds. The messaging has to be fast and it has to be succinct and it has to reach the people who you want to reach. So it's another level of the challenge of how we're going to educate our population in the future. I'm preempting your your next segment by answering in that way. But yes.
You have preempted my next statement indeed, because the truth is we're now living in a fast-paced world, and I dare to say a fast-paced Jamaica. We are, and the younger generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they want things quick and fast, which includes the messages that are being disseminated to them. People hardly spend time sitting reading through pages of books anymore. They want things they can put in their ears, and just as they move around, they're listening or they're watching and so forth. And so we as regulators and as leaders within the industry, we have to adapt. Huh? We have to change also, and we have to adapt. And as Dr. Emil pointed out, BOJ have done it with inflation, with reggae music, which around the world everybody thought, wow, inflation being promoted or being made aware with respect to using reggae music. And I think other industries can follow suit. Maybe it's not necessarily reggae music, but leveraging whether it's TikTok or whichever platform to ensure that the messages reach the desired audience. I'm gonna take a break at this time to bring up our next video. We have 2 more questions that are there that when we come back, I'll kickstart with those things. But at this time, we're gonna take a break, give the panelists some time to recuperate, and then we will continue at this time.
Almost 1 in every 10 Jamaicans consume excess salt or sodium. More than 70% of our population have inefficient resources or access to safe, adequate, or nutritious food. Most participants in the 2017 study from where I quote these figures were affected by stress, financial constraints, and inaccessibility of healthy options. Another study done in conjunction with the WHO and UNDP estimates our economy will lose $77.1 billion between 2017 and 2032 from the costs of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And to add fuel to the fire, the media promotes unhealthy fast food, especially to our children. Our appetite for foreign-produced unhealthy snacks is astronomical. We have some intricate problems producing fresh, quality produce consistently, and climate change is making this target harder to reach. With this pandemic, our food security has never been more important. The time to eat locally produced commodities is now. Successive governments know agriculture plays a critical role in our GDP and have invested in it. But our local commodities need to be better protected, more invested, and commercialized. Still, there's hope on the horizon. Agriculture's 7.8% growth in January to March 2020 quarter alone this year could mean a shift in Jamaicans' palates and more support for the sector's sustainability. Hope also rests with Jamaica's proactive approach to implementing AgriParks and making this initiative a policy directive to alleviate the issues surrounding local food production. I work with one such irrigation and infrastructure project aimed at increasing production and productivity. It's called the Essex Valley Agriculture Development Project. It is in what we refer to as the Breadbasket Parish in St. Elizabeth, one of Jamaica's largest parishes located in the southwest of the island. The project is funded by the UK government through the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office and administered through the Caribbean Development Bank. We chose Essex Valley area because St. Elizabeth is a highly productive area and produces a wide range of fresh produce. The farmers there do it as a career and not a hobby. They are serious about farming. They don't waste land. And if you were to take a drive through the parish, you will quickly realize front lawns filled with quick produce like thyme and scallion. A true demonstration of the national initiative to eat what you grow, which has saved Jamaica over $5.1 billion annually. The area's rainfall is irregular, inhibiting the farmers' capacity to produce. But despite this, they use ingenious ways to farm without adequate water, which shows a commendable level of innovation and reflects a true Jamaican spirit, a necessary ingredient for the success of the project. Jamaica needs to establish a modern agricultural food safety compliance system, and this provides the perfect opportunity to achieve this. And we're doing all of this in a gender-sensitive way and including the vulnerable groups. In fact, close to 70% of the farmers registered with the farmer groups through the project are women who demonstrate that indomitable Jamaican spirit, creativity, fortitude that we are known for the world round. Their strong commitment towards this project is exemplified by their dedication to training and organization of the activities within the farmers group. They are the drivers of their own future and the future of their families.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So, several messages there coming out from that video. We're seeing women playing the lead role, with respect to farming in that project or in St. Elizabeth. We have to say kudos to our ladies. I was smiling when I was listening because it's so unfortunate. I'm a born, grown Kingstonian. And so relating to, what is being said, I'm now gonna have to take a drive to St. Elizabeth, through St. Elizabeth to see what is happening there, because I'm a real born, grown Kingstonian and such forth. But good things are happening in Jamaica and stuff. I wouldn't want this person to miss the opportunity again. I'm seeing Candle Walcott Bostwick with their hand up. So I like to, before we get back in the final session, I like to give this person the opportunity to ask your question. Kendall, you have to, unmute and the floor is yours. I am not, Kendall, we're not hearing you. You're on mute, but I'm not sure if something is wrong with your mic. May I invite you to perhaps utilize the question and answer function and type your questions in there or in the chat, and I will read it out for you because we're not hearing you coming through. All right, and so there was another call in the Q&A with respect to, and Ms. Campbell, and well, it's your post to the person, where Brooks was saying that the issue in Jamaica is that with respect to food safety, the functions are disaggregated or carried out under different MDAs, Ministries Department agencies in Jamaica here. And there's a call for a centralized point to manage or handle food safety, its protection in Jamaica. Dr. Watson, what's your take on this perspective?
So when it comes to food safety, the area is very expansive and dynamic, and each of these agencies or departments play a very specific role. We are collaborative, but they're not necessarily overlapping. So it depends on how you're looking at it. So I believe the structure that we have or the systems that we have are well designed, and the function that each entity play allows for independence as well as a very robust system to safeguard the foods that we consume. The challenge that I really believe we have is one of capacity. We don't have enough inspectors. We don't have enough personnel. That is where the real issue is. our capacity to really engage the market in the way that we need to ensure that nothing is there that should not be there, and what is there are meeting the required standards that they should. That is where the real issue is, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree. I agree. The issue from lessons learned from being on the National Agricultural Health and Food Safety Coordinating Committee is that the body of knowledge that exists across the ministries and the agencies and departments that are involved along the value chain of the entire food safety issue is specific, and it requires a certain level of expertise that is assumed on the surface. As I said before, the invisible action that happens across bodies from production to that beautiful dinner in a nice restaurant is invisible, and that's why consumers are so confident and they're laid back in assuming that nothing will happen every time I have a meal, I'll be okay. So it is easy to assume that you can have a one-stop shop for food safety. But while we can have a clearinghouse, like a secretariat, which would be responsible for ensuring that the process flows and the engine is running, I don't think that Jamaica and many other countries, if you investigate, do not have a one-stop model, because it really requires much more than a single entity to actually ensure that the process is safe in the end, because it's really the health of the consumer. While we talk about trade and the economic return and so on, it's the health of the consumer at the very end that we want to achieve to ensure that there are no incidents
Well,
or reduce the incident.
I want to get a private sector perspective, and so I'm going to go to Dr. Emil. What's your view with respect to this, Doc?
It's part of a bigger complex. In Jamaica, we're guilty of not having enough vertical integration, and it leads to samples and food loss. It's the mango season, so we have a mango and then it drops and dead, and we wait till next year to eat a mango. In fact, as the SRC will tell you, we can turn mangoes into purees, into juices, into jams and jellies, and a variety of other products. It's the carrot season, and carrots grow in South Central Elizabeth. And what we do is the excess goes into further processing and all the varieties of things it can do. This has to happen right across the region, because the capacity to create safeness relates to sustainability on the one hand, but income and financial resources on the other. And you need to be part of a profit successful food generating processing system to be able to have all these other ancillary systems in place to ensure that we're safe from start to finish. There are other problems. We have too many variables in the system. In agribusiness, if I were, we in agriculture, we talk about drought and rain and hurricane come blow everything and all that. In this the CB system, we have eliminated the variables. I don't know if you know, but like the chicken houses that you see out in the countryside, don't are no respecters of hurricanes. They are built to withstand hurricanes and to continue producing under the worst weather conditions. The other systems would do the same. So even dairying, in the wet season, I can produce excess grass, which I would put into silage or into haymaking, which can sustain the sheep and goat and dairy in the drought period. We need this integrated approach to how how we produce. And once we do that, we will create viable enterprises with enough disposable income to look at storage, safety, and so on. Too much of Jamaica depends on whether it's hot or dry, or whether wind blowing or not. Um, if we did more as Holland, which is, for instance, as an example, is maybe the main agriculture producer, 85% of its production is from hydroponics and shade irrigation, and from aquaponics and so on, where all the variables in the production system are controllable. And once they're controllable, our output is predictable. And once it's predictable, we can have markets that we can sustain instead of into this stop growth thing. We don't have enough vegetables, so make we import some to this week until the rain start fall next week. We have to have this more modern thinking approach to how we do things. And in that more modern approach to how we do things is, in fact, built in food safety. Because if you produce unsafe food, people won't buy it again. And I invest so much money in sustainability. Sustainability involves safety and reliability and repeatability. And so it's part of a bigger picture in this transition. I started out by saying we started out as a banana republic and cutlass empire. It's our journey to becoming first world with integrated food systems that can sustain themselves. And part of that sustenance, obviously, will be food safety.
Dr. Emil, as a strategic person, I totally appreciate the strategic perspective that you have laid out, and I think it's a good call, and it's for us. A lot of time when we say it is for the government, but really, the people are the government, so it is really for us to, come together as we talk about integration and integrated government, and develop that roadmap, because a number of things that you mentioned, it's talking about the utilization of technology now in the process and so forth. And it even goes back to the educational sector in terms of how we start to train and educate our students, coming up with respect to agriculture and their outlook and their perspective on the agriculture industry, to see that it's more than just a fork or a shovel digging dirt, but in this era that there are technological advances that can be implemented. Of course, there's a need for the capital investment, but I'm sure there are projects around that we can we can have that discussion where that is concerned. But thank you very much for the contributions. The question and answers are rolling in, but we're running close to being out of time for this webinar, and that's the thing with us. When we get started, we can have a discussion all day on issues that are of major concern, and no doubt, food safety is definitely everyone's business, and it is of importance. And so in this final segment, I like to pose to the panelists in terms of the future, because we said safe food for now and for tomorrow. So tomorrow is the future. What mechanisms, what actions, what strategic intent or initiatives will your entity be rolling out to continue to ensure food safety? And in the same breath, while you're thinking about that, I'm one that don't like to omit people questions. So, when an attendee pose a question, I like to honor it. So someone is saying here that, why is there such, and I'm paraphrasing what they have here, why is there such a limited amount of resources or persons that are in the business where ensuring food safety is concerned? So I pose those two questions out to the panelists as we head in the last segment of this very interactive webinar. And let me start with Dr. Watson.
All right, thank you for that. I can't answer the question as to why there are not enough inspectors or persons working in the regulatory aspect to ensure that we are fully resourced to inspect and confirm that the foods that are on our shelves should be there? Can't answer that one. That's the one's a little bit higher than me. But as it relates to the future and what it is that we are doing to help in terms of safeguarding our food and ensuring that it's safe from the SRC's perspective, and looking again at the specific role that we play in being supportive, and supportive through having facilities that persons can utilize, as well as accessing resources through our analytical labs to assess their products. We're looking at how we can remodel the SRC. Currently, access to our services, we like to think that we're accessible, but persons in the general public might have a different opinion, because some of our services require financial resources to access it. So we're continually looking at how we can reduce the price point to which persons can access our service, to make it almost like anything that is free we like to access. So we want to make it very, very accessible from a price point perspective. So the SRC is continually looking at ways how we can optimize what it is that we offer, how we can reduce our costs by having greater efficiency or utilizing more advanced technologies, and also improving on the service that we offer in terms of the turnaround time. If you have an eggplant or a milk plant, you can't wait 10 days for us to give you results. You want it a turnaround time within hours. So these are the ways that we're looking into the future to see how we can better the services that we're offering, to be more supportive and facilitatory for persons to access these services, so that it's a no-brainer. Because don't kid you, food safety costs. It costs to the manufacturer. It's a cost associated in ensuring that your food meeting the standards. And the more we can lower that cost, the more producers will access the services to ensure that the products that they're offering to persons meet the required standard that they must. We don't want it to be a tug-of-war situation where they're feeling burdened to get their products tested or accessing these services. So that's something that we're continually looking at, how we can make ourselves more appealing and accessible to those who we serve.
All right, thank you, Dr. Watson. Ms. Campbell.
Yes, thank you very much. One of the challenges we're facing now since the pandemic as a CAC, in our public education program, the field operations unit responsible for the face-to-face engagement among tertiary students, those that are training to come into the field of the regulatory bodies, etc., etc. We try to reach out to social clubs and all of that. So those platforms, face-to-face, that we took for granted prior to the pandemic, have virtually, and play on the word virtually, yes, pun intended, disappeared. So our challenge in terms of the message of food safety, which is usually part of our overall messaging when we go out to speak to audiences, is the things that we were speaking about. Ensure that you read your labels, verify where your food is coming from. Make sure that when you're filing a complaint, if there's something that has gone wrong and you feel your rights have been breached, you send us the barcode, take a picture of the manufacturer's address and so on, as Dr. Thompson earlier referred to. So what we plan to do in the future is to expand our virtual space. We have begun that by having a bi-weekly CAC Live. And what we've started to do is to engage consumers about, simple contracts that they engage in the marketplace, because most persons are now shopping online, they're having food delivered to them. So we are highlighting some of these emerging trends to say, these are some steps that you need to take to safeguard any incidents of food poisoning or having, some kind of incident while you're at home locked down, consuming food that is not safe, that's not a good look. So we're trying to expand our education to include some of those incidents, some of those emerging trends. The other thing is that our market surveillance, run by our research department, we have started to add, we report to Statin and other entities on the trends in terms of food prices and so on that we monitor. But we're adding other items that have come on board for some consumers because of the what Dr. Thompson raised, the new consciousness about the nutritional value. So people are now more concerned about not necessarily organic, but where is the food coming from? You know, who manufacture this brand or who import this brand? Where does it come from? They want to know all that prior to making a purchase. So we're expanding that kind of reach. We want to also be able to um, have a little bit more leeway in terms of our membership with Consumers International. We are restrained as to the partnerships we can have for public education. We are seeking to have some partnerships where we can engage in a consistent and repetitious messaging to have consumers learn more about the issues of food safety and why it is important for them to know how to handle chicken, cutting board for the chicken versus the cutting board for the vegetables, and what can happen to your child if you have contaminated chicken on the board and you use that same board to prepare something else and that child gets sick. You know, little things like that. We want it to be granular, we want it to be relatable, and we want it to be facilitating the behavioral change that we all want for consumers. I leave the trade side of the expectations to Dr. Emil and Dr. Thompson, but our focus at the CAC is really sustaining the health and wellness and well-being of the consumer.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Dr. Emil, carbon boilers, in the future, what can we do?
It's really an extremely expensive thing to do, food safety and quality control, but it's not something that we do on the side. It involves everybody from the senior management all the way down. And it's a daily interaction with all the members of the staff. In our company, everybody sells, regardless of whether you came as an accountant or a feed manufacturer and so on. Everybody sells. In other words, on the roads, when you go to the shops and supermarkets, or you're out there at a function, the feedback with respect to how our products look, what people say about them and all that comes straight back to us on a daily basis. In the supermarkets, the products must remain fresh, and therefore they are rotated continuously, daily and every week, so that the products can stand up to our claims that they're fresh and healthy, and you won't see anything out there looking like, it should not be there. And it's an expensive business, but everybody sells, everybody shows concern for what the public sees, everybody tastes it and tells us what is good or great about it, and most times it's good or great. But I once had a conversation with I think it was Douglas O'Rain at Grace Kennedy, and they said one of the greatest things they ever did was to create Grace Kitchens. In other words, you don't take it for granted that people know what to do with their product. They need to know how to repair it, when to prepare it, how to store it, and the varieties available to them. And we have adopted the same position where we spend a lot of time promoting foods, varieties of recipes, and how to store and how to innovate. And this results in a faster rate of takeoff and a faster turnover and creates greater satisfaction in the public's mind. So it's really fundamental to what's going on. We are worried about cost and all that. Let me give you one example in a few seconds. Jerk pork is very popular in Jamaica, Jamaican jerk pork. But when you prepare pork, you put a pound of pork on the fire and the fat drains away over the fire and you're left with 4 ounces of meat, right? Which can serve 1 or 2 people at best. I can take that, go to my kitchen and show them to say, let us instead of this put on the pound as stew pork. To the stew pork, I add fruits, vegetables, carrots, and Irish potatoes, and so on. And by the time I cook my pound of stew, I have 1.8 pounds or nearly 2 pounds of meat type product that can feed 6 people instead of 2. And so the cost of feeding your family goes down because I've shown you how now to stew pork instead of jerking it. And this is really quite important, the creativity and innovation. It makes it interesting, it makes people want to eat it, and it relates to better nutrition for the people because they like it. I mean, egg is a boring thing on as it is, but I can show you 25 ways of creating an egg with souffles and omelets and so on. That makes it exciting. And so I can provide cheap, high quality protein for children who would then love it. So we just need to open up our minds to do things in a new and different ways and to innovate so that the people will want your product, will know how to use it, and will use it and sustain their bodies and minds by doing so.
And may I interrupt with that, Dr. Emil? I'll invite the public to go to the Consumer Affairs Commission's website and take a look at Eating Right When Money Tight, which we published in 2010 in collaboration with your friend, Dr. Emil, Joyce Campbell of the National Consumers League, and everyone knows he's a nutritionist. So we did that publication to assist consumers in creative ways, as you just described, how to combine manufactured foods with the fresh to expand that meal so that it can share for a family of 5 or whatever. So the weight of the cost is not so burdensome. So we do understand exactly the practical point you're making.
In Jamaica, they say that you learn how to economize when it comes on to eating safe and such forth. This has been an interesting webinar. I think there's much that we have learned today. Clearly, we're seeing strategies that we can utilize going forward. We have seen whereby while we're doing much, there's still more with respect to a more robust educational campaign that is needed, and enhancement with respect to integration of our government functions as we move forward in continue. I want to say continue because it's not as if we're not doing it, as we continue to ensure safe food for now and safe food for tomorrow. Just doing some administrative work. In the Q&A, Ms. Campbell, Doreen Ron Campbell had left a message, a WhatsApp, an email, and she expressed that she's looking forward to working with you. So definitely see an opportunity coming out there. So that contact information is there for you. She had to run to another meeting. I note Clive Harris was pretty active in the Q&A. Clive, I would want to give the mic to you. There's a number of things that you have said and questions you have asked. You're still on the platform, so I would want to give the mic to you. Go ahead, Clive, in asking your questions and making your statements.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. So my point was basically in line with the shortage of persons, skilled persons in the food industry with the right expertise and knowledge to really drive the Jamaican food industry. What I realized from a young age is that the food industry is never presented as a viable way of employment for the young teenagers. So not until I started college did I really know about the industry itself and what type of employment exists in the field and how important it is just in general. So I think we need to bridge that gap there in order for us to get more persons in the field itself. It's not a unique situation to Jamaica alone. So the UK, the US, Canada, it's the same thing despite them having such large industries. So that's the point I wanted to put in there.
All right, thank you. I'll join with you, Clive, because by how you sound, our age doesn't sound too far apart. And I'll say to you that, growing how the agricultural industry was perceived or presented to me as a young man, it's not one that I would think I would look at career in that area until I visited Case, and I won't say when I visited Case, right? Until I visited Case, and I have a total different appreciation, and even may I say a love for agriculture, and now thinking of how can I get my foot in it and such forth. But as I said, much needs to be done. Where much more needs to be done, where our education and awareness and sensitization programs are concerned in, as you rightfully say, getting young people interested in the food industry and actually see it as a viable career path going forward. I also think about the role that my own agency has played with respect to what we're doing now and what we'll be doing for the future. I go back to the point of performing a border regulatory function, and persons would have known that the Jamaica Customs Agency had implemented ASICUDA World. What is interesting is that partnering with the border regulatory agencies, there's a function in the system that we call administrative selectivity that allows the border regulatory entities, the respective entities, to receive the information from the declaration or the declaration in advance before it is cleared through the system. And so they're able to apply certain risk-based controls in determining whether or not a shipment, and in this case, a particular shipment of food or food-based items really needs to be examined versus those that, the risk level, there's none, or it's extremely low, and so that can be released. There's also the function where we're carrying out what is called coordinated inspection, where we jointly carrying out inspection where, food-based items are concerned. Going forward, which this is a national project, the Jamaica Single Window for Trade that is currently being implemented, and various border regulatory agencies are being onboarded. And of course, we'll continue to push the boundaries where this is concerned, because in this time, what is also important is getting information and data in advance at an early stage so that it can help in the decision making as we move forward. And that's where I think the part of the role that the agency is playing with respect to helping the border regulatory agencies in getting information in advance to help ensure that there's safe food coming in our society. As we look to close out, I'd like to give a final word, maybe 30 seconds to each of my panelists. I'll start with Dr. Watson, a final word from you with respect to safety. Food safety is everyone's business.
Just to say that we here at the SRC will continue to play our role in ensuring that the landscape here in Jamaica is one that facilitates access to resources that will help us to make our food safe. We will continue to offer support, guidance, and facilitate as much as we can, and encourage persons to call, email us, and see how best we can help you in your desires to produce or assess your food products.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Ms. Campbell.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to say that we continue to be committed to the consumers and to remind everyone that we're all consumers. So when persons point and say the CAC, we're all experiencing the same thing, the team here as everybody else. So we're all consumers. So we want to reiterate our commitment to collaborate with all the entities at various levels and continue to partner with our international partners to ensure that our reputation remains intact while speaking our truth, ensuring that the consumers are protected wherever they are, because a great part of our market for our foods, as Dr. Emil mentioned, is overseas. And while sometimes they try to steal our intellectual property, like Blue Mountain Coffee in Texas, that has nothing to do with Blue Mountain in Jamaica. We still have to make some effort to protect. So the Consumer Affairs Commission agrees that it requires broad collaboration and a continuous work to facilitate consumers, whether on the farm, on the front lawn in St. Elizabeth, growing scallion, or whether it is in the factory or at the ports or in the meat shop, or in your own kitchen. We all accept that food safety is everybody's business, because one incident impacts the household, the community, and the market space. So we want to invite consumers to remember that we are here protecting their rights in order to secure the future of Jamaica. And to remember that if you don't tell us what is happening, we can't assist. So use the platforms available to your disposal to report, inform, ask questions, file a complaint so we can seek redress, so you can be part of the 21.9 million we secured last financial year. And also to make sure that you take the practices that are shared with the various entities about how to make sure your food is safe. You take them seriously and ask if you need assistance. All the entities are there to assist you in educating yourself and your family.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Before I go to Dr. Emil, Tafari Smith, I'm going to make you part of the panelists. Hold your hands up. So I'm going to take this final one from the floor or from the attendees. Ms. Smith?
While you're waiting for Ms. Smith, I want to ask the participants to go ahead and download the CAC mobile app from the Google Play Store. That's my plug, where you can get all the information on your rights and the legislation, news items, and various things. We will now add food safety to the list of products that you will have on the app. So it's for iPhone as well as Android. So go ahead and download. It's free, so you can go ahead and download the CAC mobile app.
I'm sure all our attendees will be downloading that app and also, sending out the word to their family and friends to download the app as we move to ensure food for now and for tomorrow. Dr. Emil.
Yes, sir. We are involved in major investments in the agriculture sector, generating the most modern plants in the Caribbean in Jamaica. And we wouldn't have done that if we didn't have sustainability as foremost in our minds. We not only do we have to pay for it, but we built them in an effort to feed more people, not only here in Jamaica and the Caribbean, but around the world. And to do that, we need to look at our partners. Our partners are the farmers out there on the one hand, and so our extension services will literally be out there on a daily basis, literally holding hands with them to ensure that they grow things well and safe, because they themselves are interested in sustaining their livelihood. On the customer side, we know that they will keep coming back again and again to the products we create if they are tasty on the one hand and safety and provide proper nutrition for their families on the other. So all these elements which we have discussed are extremely important to us. They form a part of the infrastructure of our company, and we have employed people who understand their jobs, who are visionaries in their own right, who will be working together with us to make sure that the future looks alive and well with safe food for all across the world, so to speak. We have no option. There are no other options but to be safe and nutritious and sustainable. And so we are part of it, and I've enjoyed talking with the panelists. We're on the same wavelength, and I think together, working with the other members of the private sector and the government, we will achieve our objective: safe food, nutritious food, and sufficient food for all from Jamaica.
Thank you, Dr. Emil. You have been, you have all my panelists have been an tremendous, well-informed, well-knowledgeable panel on this topic of safe food and what is going on in your varying industry sector or business units. I'm sure the public have learned a lot. I mean, I know myself now have a lot more information, have more information also to share. I'm seeing Tafara Smith. I did yield the floor to you earlier on. I don't know if you have a point that you need to make. I will give the floor to you. But before you comment, there's a poll that is being activated right now. So I'm going to encourage all participants to complete the poll, to participate in it. There are prizes and surprises, all right? So you want to ensure that you participate in the poll. Ms. Smith, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly share just some additional information with our stakeholders to let them know that the BSJ, Bureau of Standards Jamaica, that we do also offer several different services that our stakeholders can maximize on. As it relates to food safety, we do have the Food Safety Modernization Secretariat, and we can assist you by helping you to understand the requirements to access the US market. So you can always call on us, specifically Food Safety Modernization Secretariat, to get information regarding that specific market. We also are the national inquiry point for the WTO TBT, Technical Barrier to Trade Committee. And we are the representatives we at the BSJ is a representative for Jamaica. And what we provide is market access information should you want to ship your product to the different markets around the world. Whatever market it is, we are engaged through the WTO with other inquiry points to get this information for you so that you know what these requirements are to access these different markets. Also, we have a series of business partnership programs that we offer discounts to our local stakeholders, either for testing, whatever it might be. Testing, the services are different, but I know persons usually come in for testing, labeling, as well as probably training. So we do offer through, if you're a part of association, we do offer you these discount from 20 to about 25%. And we encourage stakeholders to take advantage of this. Lastly, I want to mention that the BSJ has a client servicing program. And what this client servicing program does is it's focused on MSMEs, and we work with you to help you to understand the requirements of a standard and how you can go about meeting the standard. We don't tell you what to do, we tell you how to interpret it, and you will come up with your solutions, because we cannot tell you what to do. At the end of the day, we'll be auditing you at the end. So we don't tell you what to do and audit our own work. So we help you and guide you how to understand the requirements of the standard, and you use this to improve your production process or to improve safety of your product. And
this is available to you pretty much free of cost for now. And I know it's free for now. So I encourage you to use it. There are several services there at Bureau that you can use to improve your product quality, to improve your efficiency of your business, as well as if you're just a startup and you need general handholding, visit us at the BSJ. We are here to help you to strive.
All right.
So I just wanted to add that.
Well, thank you, Ms. Smith. Now, if BSJ don't need another marketing person, you've done an exceptional job. But just listening to you, my mind reflect on the question that was posed and the response provided by Ms. Campbell. Where that central, you call it a secretariat clearance house, where persons can get information and will probably ratify and disseminate. Definitely it's something for the future that we can as a people, as a government, we can look into establishing to help make the process way more better for people. So the poll is going on. I'm hoping you're participating in the poll. Everybody needs to participate in the poll. There are prizes and surprises. And as I bring the curtains down on this webinar, I'll use the opportunity to inform you that there's another webinar on Friday. Yes, there is. There's another webinar on Friday. My producers can display at this time. There we go. So there's another webinar looking at safe food for healthy tomorrow. Continuing the talk on food safety is everyone's business. The social media outlets where you can log on, that's a term we use to be a part of this event. We have on Instagram at WFSD Jamaica, and on Facebook, WFSD Jamaica. Persons can tune in on these platforms to be a part of the webinar that will be taking place. Continuing the discussion on food safety, and this one will be Jamaica's food safety policies and regulations ensuring food is safe. How is it, those who we have put in place, the border regulatory agencies, the varying domestic regulatory agencies of Jamaica, how is it from a policy and regulation standpoint, they are ensuring that food is safe. So another exciting webinar is coming on Friday. Definitely, you don't want to miss it. You want to be a part of it. I'll be there. I hope you will be there and stuff. I'm sure this time I won't be the moderator, so I'll have a lot of questions and such forth. And so forth. But it has been a good time, time well spent. I saw someone in the chat put a very informative session, and indeed, it has been a very informative session. If you were paying to get information like this, and I was the CEO, my company would be rich today, and such forth. I could be on the stock market and booming, and so the wealth of information that has been provided here today. And of course, all good things have to come to an end, as we like to say. I know you want to stay on here longer and talk more and such forth, but we have to bring the curtains down on this one. And so in closing out, I like to say, special thanks to our panelists, Dr. Emil, Dr. Donald Keith Emil, Miss Dorothy Campbell, and Dr. Shara Watson. Give them a round of applause. Right? Yes, man, go ahead, man. I'm doing it. Join with me, definitely. The wealth of information that you have provided here today is beyond us and stuff. I'm sure more Jamaicans are well informed as to what is happening on the private sector side with respect to Caribbean Boilers Group, and just generally, the information that was provided by Dr. Emil to the CSC, Miss Dorothy Campbell. I'm sure if nobody knew about the CSC before and stuff, or the depths of what the CSC is involved in, we were made aware today. Dr. Watson, SRC, I can tell you, I now can go back to my brother who is in that chemistry, biology industry, and I can have a conversation with him. I'm confident. I've seen him with a SRC certification or certificate. I can go now and have conversation with him on what the SRC is about and the role that you're playing with respect to food safety. So thank you very much to the panelists. I'm sure the attendees greatly, as they've expressed in the chat, the information, the discussion that you have enabled today. To our sponsors and supporters, definitely this event could not have been possible to you. So the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Office of the Cabinet Jamaica, PAHO/WHO, ICA, FAO, BSJ, NCRA, JMEA, the National Codex Committee of Jamaica, Barjon Industrial Supplies Limited, the Consumer Affairs Commission Jamaica, Jamaica Customs Agency, RADA, and the University of the West Indies, definitely playing a role to ensure that this event is made possible today. What this expressed is that integrated government and private, public, and academic approach. So I want to come up with a new acronym today. PPAP. Yes, we talk about PPP. I say PPAP. Public, private, and academia partnership is indeed possible right here in Jamaica. And today was a demonstration of such. The World Food Safety Day Planning Committee of Jamaica, in which I am a part of, let me express gratitude to the planning committee for the work that you have done and the work that you'll continue to do to ensure that the week of event is executed in a very professional manner, and that on June 7th, we have an exciting day for World Food Safety Day celebration. I like to single out the chairman of the planning committee, Mr. Colin Cooper from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, who have provided exceptional leadership in this regard, and Dr. Susan McKenna-Miguel. The role you have played from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, the coordinating expertise and approach that you have demonstrated. It's very good to see a doctor get on the ground, get on the ground and get hands-on with things. It is very impressive to observe. To all the attendees from all walks of life, all the MDAs, the farmers, the producers, the persons in academia, the growers, the importers, everyone who have joined us here on the platform, to those in the virtual land, to those joining us regionally and internationally, who have made some contribution today, whether by questions you posed or just by being on the platform and listening. We express appreciation and gratitude for joining us here today. There's been a number of things. There have been a number of calls for action. There's strategies that have been put forward. There's need for enhanced educational awareness programs. But one thing we know about Jamaica, we will get it done, and so forth. And so with that, I bring the curtains down as we continue to celebrate the week of celebration, which commences from May 30th. We go all the way to June 7th for World Food Safety Day under the theme, Safe Food Now for a Healthy Tomorrow, Safe Food Now for a Healthy Jamaica. Food safety is everyone's business. So the growers, the importers, the servers, the producers, the exporters, the transporters, food safety is everyone's business. I've been your moderator, Earl Stewart Jr. from the Jamaica Customs Agency, and I thank you for joining us.